I did see a couple of general aviation underwriters yesterday, and they were slightly less optimistic, shall we say, about the market. And it seems that is already now people have come back in and started to boost their lines and take on more exposures. And there's basically talk that most of the sort of any sizable deal is now massively oversubscribed, and rates are actually starting to go the other way. So is that just, do you think that's just a general aviation thing that we're seeing this softening now already, or is this going to expand into the rest of the aviation market as well?
Yeah, I think, as we said earlier, although it's, airlines and general aviation are both aircraft that we're insuring, the dynamics are quite different, and actually some of the players are quite different in the two markets. And again, the other big thing, of course, is the limits. So typically an airline, physical damage of a new A350 or 787, like in $250 to $300 million just per aircraft. So it's a very, very significant amount of money. And they buy liability limits of upwards of 2 billion or more. So even with reinsurance, really a very large line on an airline would be 10 to 15%. And so there's a subscription market of 20 to 30 insurers that make up an airline placement just because of the size of the exposures. Whereas with general aviation, you're looking at much lower limits, typically, much lower values and much lower limits. And therefore, people are able to write larger lines. And in fact, in some parts of the world, in the US, for instance, it's quite common for one insurer to write 100% of relatively large general aviation business. And when you've got 7 or 8 markets all wanting to write 100%,
right.
Again, we come back to basic economics, right? There's supply and demand. In London, it's slightly different. There's less 100% writers. But typically where a large line on an airline or even a major products account would be 10 to 15, it's again not uncommon to be 25, 30, 50% lines. And so the scramble for business is more intense there. I think we have seen, even on the segment that we've engaged in, which is the sort of more the risk managed offshore helicopter business, which we view as quite similar to an airline operation, and it's modern equipment, 2 pilots effectively flying from A to B. We're not really involved in the broader general aviation segment, but we do see significant pressure on the rates there. We're not seeing it on the manufacturer side yet. That seems to be holding up and still relatively stable. And again, that's a very long tail class for us. That's the longest tail we have within aviation. And therefore, I think the capacity there is more restricted than it might be in the general aviation sector. So we're seeing a lot more stability there in terms of pricing. And again, the limits that the manufacturers buy are equivalent to what the airlines buy. For the obvious reasons.